Hello. So I'm James Loveday, and there is some slides that are going to come up about resilience and transition of supporting people. Oh, two of them, yay. I'm going to do a lot of turning around, but first I wanted to do, normally I talk about business growth and I talk about finding your niche markets, but I've been working with a lot of NDIS providers, and because there's a lot of people that are new to the sector, I really wanted to talk about the fact that a lot of the people we work with have acquired disabilities, or if they've had lifelong disabilities, they've had some trauma joined to that, and as providers we really have to be aware of what that looks like. So that's what I'm talking about today. So firstly, I just want to introduce the companies that I work for. This company here is a company called T&K. I've just been made the COO of that company. Don't clap because my boss is here and she doesn't like to be pointed out. She's sitting over there in the black. Okay. She's really not social, so if you talk to her, that'll be good for me. I am the director of Keely's Cause. Keely's Cause is a charity that gives iPads to children with disabilities. Some people in this room attended their gala about 3 weeks ago in Melbourne. And it was started by a 13-year-old girl who wanted to see a change in how people with autism and intellectual disability were treated in the education system. So she supplies iPads to those children. So one of the things I find really, really interesting in this industry is that we often share other people's stories without asking them, okay? We also do that in Indigenous culture. So this is kind of like my welcome to disability that I've come up with. So, as a proud neurodiverse man, I acknowledge the people of Australia who identify as having a disability. I stand here as a representative and a voice, and I pay my respects to the persons with a disability, and I acknowledge that their stories are owned by, I didn't write that very well, but I acknowledge the stories that I'm telling are other people's. What is disability? Disability can be missing a limb. Who has ChatGPT turned on? I thought it would have been Bobby, because Bobby loves ChatGPT. So, what is disability? Disability can be physical, it can be mental, it can be sensory, it can be cognitive, it can be about mobility, it can be about having some form of delay. So disability is lots and lots of different things. When someone with a disability has a life change, so this could be, in theory, they've lived with their family for a long period of time, they might be mildly intellectually disabled, and now the family has decided as a group that they're going to move out into a still home. Okay? They've had a really good baseline for a long period of time, and they're now going to re-enter a different part of society. This is the same for people that acquire disabilities. I spent quite a bit of time working with, I've got quite a passion for people that have physical disabilities where the support is really about their mental wellness, not about their physical wellness. So one of the things I want you to picture is who here has, who's sprained their ankle before? Okay, sprained their ankle, okay? I want you to think of spraining your ankle as acquiring a disability. In that, you have accessibility barriers. So every single day you have to hop. You can't get upstairs. You need to use some kind of aid, okay? You suffer from discrimination. Your family members or your friends might be going to the shops or going to a restaurant and they go, actually, we're not going to invite that person because if we take them to the restaurant, it's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse, to tell you the truth, because we have to get them out of the car, they can't drive. The stigma around that is obviously the fact that you can see that they can't get up the stairs, that there is that discrimination, and ultimately it leads to social exclusion. These are things that people with a disability come across every single day. Anyone that has sprained their ankle will know the frustration with spraining your ankle, that frustration with re-accessing the world. Now just imagine that you're a 40-year-old man, you've got 3 kids and a wife, you've been working in the mines, you've worked really, really hard, and now you've had a stroke. You've been put in hospital, you're laying in bed, and basically you're not allowed out of hospital because the house you're going back to with your family is not accessible. You can't access your family anymore. Your wife's probably not interested in you anymore. You can't play with your children. And you're being told you have to go live with other people in a 3-to-1 setting in a cell. The frustration around that is extreme. And we come across this all the time as NDIS service providers. One of the things I like to talk about is a lot of service providers that I work with that look at this, they go, oh, this person's had an acquired brain injury and they won't get out of bed, so they're getting pressure sores. And they try to deal with the pressure sore. The problem isn't the pressure sore, the problem is the mental health that that person is suffering. So thinking about the staff that you put in those homes, having a staff member that may not be the most qualified support worker you've ever come across, but is also a 40-year-old man that is quite happy to take him down to the TAB and put on a bet. Because that's re-baselining that person. I worked with a lady who had cerebral palsy. She has 3 kids as well. And she has a lovely husband. And she had a fall. She was ambulant, and then she had a fall and is now in a wheelchair. And the NDIS said, you can't go back to your children. You can't go back to your home. And the option they gave her was around basically moving into an apartment under the NDIS, under SCA. But in that apartment, she couldn't have her 3 kids or her husband. So that didn't work. One of the things I did with her when I worked with her, was she owned a home. So we spoke to her about selling her home, buying an SCA and living with her family. If she just moved out into the community, into that apartment, she would have been an extremely unhappy woman. She's lost everything she has. So when we work with people that have acquired disability, we need to think about the physical part, but we also need to think about the mental part. The other really, really big part is when someone might have a mental illness, someone might have depression, they might have schizophrenia, bipolar, and then it gets really, really bad. Their life is completely different. Their family has marginalised them. It's just a totally different life. So we need to think about the mental health concerns around these people. I've kind of gone a bit off track, but you get where I'm going. So I've really kind of already spoken about the understanding of the emotional landscape around disability. I've got many friends with disabilities. I actually went to a specialist school when I was younger, so I have people I went to school with that are now in CILs and SDAs. And there isn't a real emotional landscape around having a disability, that constant put down, put down, put down. That I can't do that, I can't do this. I've kind of spoken about acquiring a disability, so we'll go to the next bit. So I've kind of already spoken about this, which is the emotional responses to getting a disability. We also need to talk to the emotional responses to change. One of the things I want to speak about here is, does anyone here have a participant that's over the age of 45 and has had a lifelong disability? Cool. There is a good chance that that person at some stage in their life was institutionalised. A very, very good chance. An extremely good chance that they were institutionalised. So when we put them into our homes, if we don't take that into account, sometimes we can re-traumatise them. So we really have to think about that. We got someone in hospital, okay, and the hospital goes, they're doing great. They're doing great in hospital. They're walking up and down hallways and they're getting up and they're bathing themselves. And then we take them into a totally different environment and expect the same out of them. It's like me going to China all by myself without ChatGPT to be able to do translation for me and me trying to get around. It's a totally different world. That's what we need to think about. Every time someone moves, we might re-traumatise them, but that change can be traumatising in itself. The role of identity. So when people acquire a disability, they might lose a limb, they might lose mobility, but what they lose is their personal identity, who they were as a person. And everyone here, your identity is extremely important to you and extremely individualised. So we need to think about what that, that emotional response is. Who here has children? I'm expecting more hands than people that have worked with people over 45. If you think about what your identity was like post having children, pre-having children and post-having, it's a totally different identity, okay? All of us went through a resettling process. When you acquire a disability, your identity changes, just like when you have a child. Not saying that a child's like having a disability, but if you want to put your hand up and think that your child annoys you to that point, you can go for it. So we need to look at it from that perspective as well, is that it's when someone has changed, their identity slightly changes. That's not a problem. It's just something we need to identify, because we need to get as close to that baseline as possible. If you're a dad, you played a lot of footy. I'm not from Victoria, so when I say footy, it's just a very broad comment. And then you have a child, you stop playing footy, but a couple of years later, you go and you have another kick, and then you're back into footy, okay? A lot of people with disabilities don't get that chance, and as supports of those people, our goal should be helping them to refine what their original identity was, because that will help them baseline their mental health. Stages of grief, okay? Anyone that acquires a disability, anyone that's had a child, you still go through the stages of grief. Oh shit, I'm having a child. Oh shit, I'm angry about it. I shouldn't have done it. Rah, 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 rah. But what we have to understand about stages of grief is that it's not linear. So when I talked before about being in a hospital, that person's been supported through stages of grief, through acquiring a spinal injury. When they go back into the community, they restart that all over again. If they're just being able to walk down a hallway and now they're in a street with cobblestones, the grief, the anger is still there. It's reintroduced to the person. So we have to know that when we take people on as participants, that this is going to happen. We're going to see those stages of grief again, and we need to work with it. What people need, okay? And you notice I used people because this is a very broad thing. This is what everybody needs. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean you need it. Building a supportive network. Now, what we have to realise is that to rebuild someone's identity, that involves us, but it's not about us, because their identity was before us. So I speak to a lot of providers and a lot of participants, and they go, my family's marginalised me, okay? That's a whole bunch of grief and mental health and stress. But what our goal as support providers to support that person should be is to find them a way to reintegrate somewhat with that family. So we'll just skip this one because I've pretty much spoken about it. I love this picture. This is the only picture that's in this chat, it wasn't put in by ChatGPT. When we're talking about people building their support networks, rebuilding their identity, this picture shows what it should be. If you notice, there are 3 hands holding beer in this picture. Okay? I'm guessing is a quadriplegic in that picture. He's not holding a beer, okay? But he's out with his friends. He's out with his family. He's out with what his identity used to be. And look at the smile on his face. So when we are seeing these people have social events with family or reconnect with friends, we shouldn't be a part of the barrier between that. We shouldn't be like, oh, everyone's drinking so they can't. They can't. In theory, I've got friends who are recovering alcoholics, and they would say that just hanging out with their friends is as important as drinking. And it's the same. Going to Christmas Day with your family is just as important as partying on Christmas Day. So we really, really need to think about that kind of stuff. Resilience and transition, mental health. The 4 key takeaways on this that I would like to, push out to the audience today is physical health and mental health go hand in hand. We all know this. Like, if you're having a bad mental health day, sometimes people will say just go for a walk, okay? Empowering the person to have a self-voice empowers the person. As I said right at the start, we speak a lot on behalf of people with a disability, And what that does is lower them within social status constantly. If someone has an ability to have a voice, give it to them. If someone's voice takes a long time, give it to them. Because it's their voice, it's their story. So, if you focus on the destination, the route doesn't matter. I see a lot of providers, we live in a very instant gratification world, okay? If we want something, we can order it to our house. But when you work with disability, it's not about instant gratification, it's a long haul game, okay? It's going to go forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. So if you're working with someone towards a goal, the pathway to that goal and how long it takes them to get there does not really matter because it's the goal that matters. And the definition of happiness is having purpose. So years ago, I actually used to do training in the meaning of happiness. I know that sounds really wanky and like spiritual, but you're allowed to laugh at that. It's all right. But so the definition of happiness is different for everyone. So if you're a mum, the definition of happiness is your children. If you're a dad, your definition of happiness might be providing. If you're a teenager, your definition of happiness is taking pictures on Snapchat, okay? That's what it is. But what it is all those things serve a purpose. So if someone's unhappy, if you can find a purpose for them in their life. So I'm someone that's kind of against ADEs, I guess. Does everyone know what an ADE is? Yeah. I'm not going to explain what they are because I'll get too wild up. But I also understand that ADEs serve a purpose in certain people's lives. Because those people that go to ADEs, they talk about it every single day. I went to work today and I made stuff for Qantas. That gives them a purpose and that person keeps them happy. That purpose keeps them happy. So I really think we need to focus on giving people purpose within the world they live in. This is a very badly formatted slide, plus a plug in theory. James Loveday, that is a QR code that takes you to a whole bunch of random stuff that I'm joined to. That is my phone number and that is my email at Support Navigator. I have an open door policy in theory, but sometimes I might not be in the room. Okay, so if you call me and I don't answer, it's not because the door's not open. It's because I'm in a different room doing something different. But if you come to that room enough, I will be in that room. The other thing is, as a mindless plug, I did write a book around autodidactic thinking, the power of the mind. If anyone wants to talk about that further, go for it. It's how I think, it's how I work with businesses, stuff like that. So yeah, that's me. I hope that wasn't too depressing. It was kind of like uplifting at the same time. But I think it's extremely important for providers not only to understand their business, but also understand how we better support people to get the outcomes that they're after. So thank you.